Hi girls, gays, and theys, and my name is Jess, and welcome back to my channel, Books Past Bedtime. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about my top 20 most exciting queer new releases that are coming out, wink wink, nudge nudge, in June. Just a disclaimer, this is a curated list, so these are the 20 books that I myself am most interested in that are coming out in June. There are definitely many more queer books that are releasing in June. I will leave a more comprehensive Goodreads list down below if you would like to check that out, so you can get an idea more of like all of the books that are coming out in June. But of course, if you have a similar reading taste to me and want to hear what I am interested in personally, keep watching this video. I am going to be splitting these books up into genre categories. Make sure you check the chapters in the description down below. If you are not interested in a certain chapter, feel free to skip that. But yeah, let's just go ahead and get into it. So the first category of books that I want to talk about are YA books. I don't read as many YA books as I used to, but recently I have read a few that have really impressed me, so I feel like I am more interested in some of the YA books that are coming up. And YA is really the genre of like queer literature. There is so much good queer representation in YA books, so I feel like we should not push them to the side. They definitely deserve a chance and some love, so these are the ones that I am most excited for that are coming out in June. The first of which is The Do's and Donuts of Love by Adiba J. Gadar. This book comes out on June 6th and is a book about queer girls in a baking competition reality TV show, which sounds fantastic. In this book, we're following our main character, Shireen, who has just recently broken up with her girlfriend, Chris, when she gets the news that she's invited on this baking reality TV competition for teens. But things get complicated when it turns out her ex-girlfriend, Chris, is also a contestant on this show, and Shireen begins to fall for another fellow contestant, Neve. But if she wants to win the prize money, Shireen will have to ignore all of these distractions and focus on herself. This book sounds so cute. Now, if you know anything about me, you know I love cooking, so I love books that incorporate baking or cooking in some aspect. I also have loved a lot of books that have taken place on the set of reality cooking TV shows, so this book sounds right up my alley and I am so excited for it to come out. The next book I want to shout out is Love Letters for Joy by Melissa C. This book also comes out on June 6th. I am so excited for this book because it has some great representation in it. Our main character, Joy, has cerebral palsy, and she is also asexual, but she is still determined to become the valedictorian of her high school, and she only has one person to beat, her academic rival, Nathaniel. But during the story, all of her friends kind of start pairing up, and despite being asexual, Joy is starting to wonder if maybe she's missing out on this like great high school romance, so she writes an anonymous letter to the like anonymous advice column in her school newspaper, actually begins to fall for the mysterious voice behind the letters, but it is the last person she would expect it to be. So I believe that this is going to be academic rivals to lovers, and like I said, some great representation. So this book is definitely on my radar, and I can't wait to check it out once it comes out. The next book on my list is Dark Hearts by James Sutter, and this is another book that comes out on June 6th. There's so many good stuff coming out on that date, and from the description, this book sounds perfect for fans of like K-pop groups or One Direction, which is myself. So our main character of this book's name is David, and he is formerly of a band called Dark Hearts, but he decided to leave this band at some point, and after he left, this group actually blew up and became really famous, and I think David kind of regrets not being a part of it when it blew up. But one of the other members, Eli, suddenly dies, and this throws David and the third band member, Chance, back into contact, and so David and Chance decide to reform the band, and they actually begin a tentative romance that Chance wants to keep secret, so things get complicated for David, as you might imagine. This book sounds so good and definitely sounds like it will give me those boy band vibes that I personally love, but also seems like it might have a bit of like emotional heart to it, which I always find intriguing, especially in a YA book. The next book I am interested in that's coming out in June is North Ranger by Ray Terciero and Brie Indigo, another book coming out on June 6th. This one is actually a graphic novel, which I love, and at this book we're following Cade as our main character. He is someone who has always loved horror movies as an escape from real life. This is because he knows that real life growing up in rural Texas as a closeted queer Latino is way scarier than horror movies. So when Cade is sent to spend the summer working as a ranch hand, he is terrified, but he does find a silver lining in this position in Henry, the ranch owner's son. But as the two get closer, Cade begins to realize that Henry might be hiding a big dark secret. Sounds fun and mysterious. I love the representation and the idea of like horror being incorporated in this YA contemporary. I think it sounds super cute and I'm very excited to check it out. Next, I am of course very excited for Going Bi-Coastal by Dahlia Adler. I have read I think 2 books by Dahlia Adler so far and they're always like surprising standouts to me, so I feel like at this point I'm getting with the program and realizing that I really like Dahlia Adler as an author. She writes great, light, cute YA contemporaries and I just am very excited for her newest installment. This book comes out on June 13th, and in it we're following our main character, Natalia Fox. Now, Natalia has 2 options for the summer. One, she can stay in New York with her dad and finally screw up the courage to talk to the girl that she's been crushing on for quite a few months. Or her second option is to go spend the summer in California with her estranged mother and try to repair their relationship. And Natalia finds that she cannot choose, so in this book, both timelines play out simultaneously. I think that this is like inspired by some kind of movie that I haven't seen because I'm not a movie girly, but this sounds super unique and super fun. And like I said, I love Dahlia Adler, so I'm definitely anticipating this one very highly. And the final book in my YA category is The Wicked Unseen by Gigi Griffins. This book comes out on June 20th. In this book, we're following our main character, Audrey, who doesn't fit in her rural town as one of the only girls that would rather kiss other girls, a natural-born skeptic in a town that is obsessed with the satanic panic. So when the preacher's daughter and Audrey's secret crush, Elle, goes missing, fingers point in Audrey's direction. And as the only one not going in the wrong direction, Audrey realizes that she might be the only one who can find Elle. So this sounds like a fun queer YA thriller, which is very different than all the rest of the books on this list, but one that I am equally excited for and I cannot wait to pick it up once it comes out. All right, and the next category we're going to talk about is adult contemporary. The first book I want to bring to your attention is All the Right Notes by Dominic Lim. This book comes out on June 6th, the most popular day of the month apparently for books to come out. In this book, we're following our main character, Quito. He lives in New York City and is a very talented piano player with dreams of making it on Broadway, but he's unfortunately no closer to making that dream happen than he was when he first moved there. And Quito knows that part of his problem is that his inspiration has been MIA ever since he hooked up with the pretty boy jock Emmett. And now Quito's dad wants him to put on this charity performance in his hometown, but he also wants him to convince Emmett to come and perform as well. And this is shaping up to be the biggest fiasco of Quito's life, especially when Emmett agrees to attend, and there's still an undeniable vibe between the two. So this book sounds right up my alley, a cute contemporary with also some more emotional themes, so I am definitely eagerly anticipating this one. The next book I want to talk about is Vintage and Vogue by Kelly and Tanya Fireside. This book comes out on June 13th and is a female-female romance. This book is following our 2 main characters, Sina and Hazel, who butt heads because Sina comes into the town to kind of revitalize it and repair it, but Hazel is the granddaughter, I think, of one of the founders of the town and is really intent on preserving the history and does not want Sina to mess with any of her town. So in spite of their differences, or maybe because of them, sparks begin to fly between the two, but it turns out that Sina's arrival is also going to set off a series of events that's going to expose the ugly truth of the town, which sounds ominous. So I'm not quite sure what that's all about, but this one sounds really fun, and maybe opposites attract would be a better way to describe this rather than enemies to lovers. So I love that trope as well. Super excited to check this one out. The next book on my radar is Old Enough by Haley Jacobson. This book comes out on June 20th. This is maybe more of, these are all adult contemporaries, but this is a little less romance heavy than I think the other books on this list. And it sounds a little bit more heavy hitting. In this book, we're following Savannah. She's newly in college, just finally feeling like she's hitting her stride in life. She's recently come out as bisexual. She's made a lot of friends. But when she learns that Izzy, her childhood best friend, is engaged and wants Savannah to be a bridesmaid, but things haven't been the same between Izzy and Savannah ever since the incident that happened between Savannah and Izzy's brother when they were 16. So with the wedding around the corner, Savannah is kind of forced to come to terms with the trauma that she has put behind her for the past couple of years. So I think this book deals with some heavy topics like assault, but I think it also sounds like it's going to be just a story about like overcoming trauma and dealing with it, not allowing it to fester or control your life is kind of the vibes I'm getting from this book. And it really sounds like it's going to be a wonderful, powerful, important read. So I definitely plan to pick it up at some point in the near future. And my last book in this category is quite a different tone. It's Black Flagged by Emma J. This book also comes out on June 20th and is a bodyguard male-male romance. This book follows our main character Dren, who is a mercenary, not a babysitter, but his latest assignment is protecting F1 bad boy Carl from his own recklessness, and staying close is the only way to protect Carl from himself and others. But the forced proximity reveals the man behind the uncaring, flippant mask. And Dren can't help falling for Carl's provocative passion, even though he shouldn't, because when the contract ends, Dren has to return to the company that owns his soul. Sounds intense. I love bodyguard romance. I'm hoping this will be on Kindle Unlimited. I'm not actually sure if it will be or not. I kind of assume it will be. Hopefully it will. I am very interested in the F1 element as well. I think that sounds fun. So very much looking forward to this one. My next category is fantasy and science fiction. And the first book I want to mention is A Talent Within by Suzanne Lenore. This book comes out on June 13th. This book follows our main character Evelyn, who was born into nobility. This comes with a lot of expectations, even though she would rather throw them all off and go fight with her brothers in the military. But instead, her father has arranged her a marriage. On the flip side, we're also following Annika, who was born with a magical gift, but has waited too long to turn herself into the temple for training, as she doesn't want to be controlled. And so if she tells anyone now, she will burn as a heretic. And when love blossoms between the two girls, they know they will do anything for one another. So when Annika is captured and taken to the temple, Evelyn knows that she has to save her. So this sounds like a fun fairy tale-esque female romance fantasy, and I am very excited for it to come out. I haven't heard anything about this. I just randomly found this book when I was making this list, but it sounds so good, and I'm very excited to finally pick it up when it comes out. The only other book in this category that I have is The First Bright Thing by J.R. Dawson, and this book also comes out on June 13th. In this book, we're following our main character, Rin, who is the ringmaster of a circus that she runs with her wife, Odette. And this circus is a rare home and safe haven for magical misfits and outcasts. But then threats begin to come at Rin from all sides, and the circus and all of the people within it are threatened. And this threat takes the form of another circus with tents as black as midnight and a ringmaster that rules over his troupe with a dangerous power. And it turns out that Rin's circus has something he wants that he won't stop until he gets. This book definitely does not sound like it has a lot of romance in it, which is kind of a hit or miss for me personally, as I do like a bit of romance in my fantasy. It has those queer elements with lesbian circus leaders, which sounds fantastic, and the story itself just sounds magical and ominous and creepy and suspenseful. So I definitely think that this book will be up my alley, and I plan on picking it up as soon as it comes out. The next category of books that I want to talk about are historical fiction. I'm not always the biggest historical fiction girly, but there are actually a lot of queer historical fiction books coming out in June that are so exciting to me. So I definitely see myself reading more from this genre as the year goes on, and these will likely be a part of that. The first book I want to talk about is A Radical Love by Neil Blackmore. This book comes out on June 1st, which is a bit odd because it's not a Tuesday. I'm not sure what that's about, but I digress. This book takes place in 1809 in London, and it follows our main character, John Church, who is actually a real queer historical figure, I believe. And I think this is kind of a reimagining fictional explanation of his life and his work. John is a preacher who preaches on the radical possibilities of love to a multicultural working class congregation. And this is his day job. But by night, he crosses the river to the secret and glamorous world of Molly houses and is actually the first preacher to offer marriages between two men. By doing this, John is taking enormous risks, but he really believes in his work. And in doing this, he meets a group of African abolitionists led by Ned, and they bond over their broken childhoods, and John actually ends up falling head over heels in love with Ned. And like I said before, this is based on a true story, so I think that that element is super interesting, and I love learning more about queer history, and I feel like this is a good fictional gateway, readable gateway into learning more about the history of queerness, because as we all know, it's been around since the beginning of time. I'm super interested in this book, and I think it sounds excellent. The next book I'm excited for is, of course, Mortal Follies by Alexis Hall. Alexis Hall is one of my favorite authors, as you probably know if you have watched any video from me before. This book comes out on June 6th. This book is set in 1814 and follows Miss Mitchell Moore, who is a debutante hindered by an evil curse, and this curse is keeping her from joining the high society of Bath. So she seeks out the assistance of Lady Elandrake, who is kind of known as an evil witch because she may or may not have murdered her father and brothers to inherit their fortune. So the two join forces to conquer Miss Mitchelmore's curse and hopefully fall in love along the way. Alexis Hall is a very witty, funny author, so I know that this book is just going to be excellent, and I'm so excited to get my hands on it. Another book by another favorite author that is coming out in June is We Could Be So Good by Cat Sebastian. This book also comes out on June 6th. June 6th really should be memorialized, I guess, in June as the day when all of the best books are coming out. This book follows our main character Nick in Brooklyn in the 1950s. Nick really wants to be a famous reporter and has just recently gotten a really great job at one of the biggest newspapers in New York City. But Nick is also a gay man living in the 1950s. He knows that he can't just let anyone into his life, but he never imagined meeting anyone that is as difficult to say no to as Andy. Andy kind of busts his way into Nick's life as Andy is the son of the owner of the newspaper, and he doesn't want to take it over, but his dad really wants him to take it over, and so he agrees to work a summer or a year at this newspaper, and he's kind of just a bumbling idiot. And Nick comes behind and tries to help him out and clean up his act. And when Nick keeps rescuing Andy, feelings start to develop between the two, and the two have to decide if for the first time they're willing to fight for who they are and what they want. Cat Sebastian is such a talented author, and they really focus on historical fiction and do it really well. So I'm super excited to pick this one up, and I really think that I will love it. I think of all the books on this list, this one and the Alexis Hall are the two books that are most likely to be 5 stars for me. So super, super excited for this one. Next on my list is Magdalena in the Dark by Julia Fine. This book comes out on June 13th. The description of this book is very abstract, so I'm going to do my best to give you a succinct synopsis. This book basically takes place in 1717 in Venice, Italy, and it follows 15-year-old Louisa. Louisa has only ever wanted one thing, and that's to be the best at violin. She's a student at this prestigious music school, but she is not the best there at violin. But at the school, she meets Magdalena, who is sent there after a scandal threatens to ruin her family's reputation. Magdalena is sent to the school to preserve her marriage prospects, but Magdalena has hatched a dangerous plot to escape from the school and to pave her own way, her own future, and she invites Louisa to join in on this plot. And Magdalena also promises to make all of Louisa's dreams come true. So to me, this sounds like it's going to be kind of magical, lush, dark, mysterious, and hopefully sapphic, so I'm here for it. And last but not least in this category is Lucky Red by Claudia Cravens. This book comes out on June 20th. This book takes place in 1877 and follows 16-year-old Bridget, who arrives penniless in Dodge City, but thanks to the allure of her bright red hair and country girl beauty, she's recruited to work at the Buffalo Queen, which is the only brothel in town owned by women. But then Spartan Lee, who is a legendary female gunslinger, rides into town, and Bridget falls madly in love, resolves to claim her own destiny. This book sounds like such a fun historical rom-com, and I love Western set books, so I think this will definitely be up my alley, and I'm very excited to pick it up as well. Now I actually have 2 queer thrillers that are coming out in June that I want to talk about. So the first of which is Boys Weekend by Maddie Lubchansky. This book also comes out on June 6th and is a graphic novel, which, like I mentioned before, is fun. This is also kind of like a horror graphic novel. This book follows Sammy, who is semi-newly out as trans. They are invited to an old friend's bachelor weekend, but upon arriving, they immediately question their decision to come. Even though they have not identified as a man for over a year, their college friends do not seem to have gotten the memo. They continuously misgender them, and there is absolutely zero pushback from the supposed nice guy groom, who is supposed to be Sammy's best friend. So that's not cool. But also, Sammy seems to be the only one who has noticed that at the same hotel they're staying at, there's a mysterious cult that is ritually dismembering guests and feeding them to their bloodthirsty god. So that's fun. This book sounds super interesting, and it will take a cool and interesting perspective on transness and also mix it with a fun horror subplot. I think it's supposed to be satirical. I think this sounds super interesting, and it is very much on my radar. And the second book in this category is The Gulf by Rachel Cochran. This book comes out on June 13th. This book follows our main character Lou, who has returned to her small hometown of Parson, Texas to help her old motherly neighbor Miss Kate renovate her house. But Lou's dreams of finding a more peaceful life in person are decimated when Miss Kate is murdered, and no one but Lou seems to care about finding the killer. So when Miss Kate's daughter, Joanna, who is also Lou's first love, come back into town, Lou thinks maybe she will want to help investigate the murder, but no, she just wants the house. Her arrival kind of starts to unearth some mysterious secrets about the town and the house, who might have killed Miss Kate. So this book sounds super interesting. Like we could get potentially a little bit of a sapphic relationship. And there are not enough queer thrillers in the world, and I really do like thrillers. I mean, that's what's featured on the bookshelf behind me. I find a queer thriller, I am always very excited to check it out. And last but not least, I have one book in my nonfiction / memoirs category that I want to talk about. And that is, of course, Page Boy by Elliot Page. This book comes out on June 6th and is a groundbreaking coming-of-age memoir from Academy Award nominated actor Elliot Page. And in this memoir, Elliot apparently shares never-before-heard details and intimate explorations on gender, mental health, relationships, and Hollywood. Of course, Elliot Page is a trans icon, and I'm very excited to read their story straight from their own words. I, along with probably pretty much everyone in the queer community, is very highly anticipating this book, and so I couldn't make this video without mentioning it. And that is all for today. Those are the 20 books that I am most excited for that are coming out in June. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, definitely subscribe to my channel and like this video to let me know you liked it, and also comment the book that you are most excited for that's coming out in June. I would love to hear from you. You can also follow me on social media. All of those accounts will be linked down below. I'm pretty much books past bedtime on everything. Yes, this is my first video back from my 6-month hiatus, so if you could show it as much love as possible, I would really appreciate it. And I'm very happy and excited to be back, hopefully regularly. That's the plan. So you can expect 2 videos a week from me on Sundays and Wednesdays. The schedule, that is tentative, subject to change, is posted on my community tab if you would like to see what you can expect from me this month. Yeah, I'm very excited to be back, especially for Pride Month. That was kind of the plan all along. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you watched it all the way, leave me a little rainbow. I would love to see that in the comments. And yes, thank you again for joining me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.